What happens when you purify your body, your mind, your spirit? Something miraculous. The body begins to heal itself. Welcome to the Medicine Girl podcast, where each week we explore new ways to heal your body from the root, igniting your inner healer. You are the medicine. And now, here's your host, Robin Stebbins.
Hello and welcome to the Medicine Girl podcast. It's me, your host, Robin Stebbins, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Gabe Roberts. He's a chiropractor, so I think at this point in time, you know how I feel about functional medicine. I put it in the same category as allopathic medicine. That's your garden variety primary care doctors, your MDs, your OBGYNs, your cardiac specialists. That's allopathic medicine. Functional medicine is more your chiropractors, your naturopaths, your homeopaths. I function in a opinion that it's the same. Rockefeller took over both sides of medicine. Of course he did. And what we discuss in this podcast is a pretty balanced view. I think Gabe has a different perspective than I do on things like muscle testing and homeopathy, but I think we're more alike than not. This episode was excellent because we really get underneath all of the testing. The lab tests that you go in, the blood tests that you get done, and the diagnosis of things like Lyme's disease, and why some people are testing positive and manifest symptoms, and some people test positive and don't manifest symptoms. So we're going to really get to the bottom of why that is and how you can stay in absolute health and vitality, being able to walk your potential so that you're not constantly going to your naturopath or your chiropractor or your medical doctor. You're actually in homeostasis, and we talk about what that means. So join us for an exciting episode, and without further ado, here's the show. I don't know if you know this experiment NASA did with the spiders.
I do, where they gave them different ones to observe their webs, the symmetrical of how their webs looked, right?
Yeah. So I will tell people in my class, is like, look around your house. You know, is it a disorganized web like these spiders? Was it, the caffeine, or was it the alcohol? Was it the nicotine? And my house looks gorgeous, except for the closets and the drawers were disorganized. Everything behind the scenes was disorganized, which is exactly how I was with my alcohol. Nope, I looked perfect. Very productive, excelling at everything, but behind closed doors inside, it's disorganized, starting to become chaotic. And so now my house, if you open my closets and my drawers, it's nice and clean and neat, with the exception of like my last couple closets I need to clean out. But it's interesting how that, like, your external environment reflects your internal environment.
Right. I think there's some truth to that, and I also think that there's some unique things about us too that tell, and it really comes down to, I think, what elements we are. From a traditional Chinese standpoint and Ayurvedic practices, each of us have our own unique makeup, and some of us actually thrive better when there's, I don't want to say a total chaos, but mess. They do better. People that are more metal have to have things meticulous, and it has to be very, very, everything has to be, their vents have to be a certain way in their car.
Oh, like OCD.
And we could, and here's the thing, in the Western world, we could call it that. And I do know that there's extremes. For certain, there can be extremes that become pathological, right? But what I've learned is there's certain makeups that we need to observe with people and allow them to be that element too. And give them the right encouragement to work within that harmony, because oftentimes if they are a mess, if their life is chaotic, and I mean, they're just a shambled mess, they just hate waking up every day, there's a good chance they're working outside of their element. And this understanding has helped me grow tremendously with myself, but also with my clients. For example, I'm a wood element, and you can tell from the jaw structure and the brow bone is wood, and that means do.
Uh-huh.
So if I'm sitting in a cubicle somewhere behind a computer as my job, I will naturally become very depressed and have no idea why. What recharges my battery is going out and chopping firewood.
Yeah.
Or doing something like that. Going out and doing yard work for 8 hours on my property recharges my battery. My wife, on the other hand, is very earth. That's her nature. That's what makes her up. That's her element. And it'd be very easy, if we don't understand these things, for me to say, come on, why don't you want to go for a walk? Why don't you want to go for out in the trails for a little bit? Her idea of recharging her battery is sitting in a recliner somewhere, not partaking in a lot of physical activity, but reading a good book. Sitting somewhere, reading a good book, that recharges her battery. That helps me, but it can also, it doesn't recharge my battery in a way. So understanding these elements, I think, is really important. And the more of a metal element you are, the more, and you're highly sensitive to energy, very meticulous about things, it just means you have a lot more metal predominantly in who you are. So I think it's really easy for us to group.
Well, I mean, and just talking about it, though, is be something to explore. But, I definitely identify with wood. I definitely identify with earth. It's just depending on the day. Like some days when I have really, really pushed it, and, maybe it's been 3 weeks of just go and doing all those things, building the arbor in my backyard. And then it's like sitting down and reading a book on my lounge chair, seeing nothing else that needs to be done. That's heaven. Or then, having in the spring or fall, like really meticulously organized closets, and all the curtains are washed now. And, it's like I'll move. And I think we as humans are fluid, because my son asked me this morning, are you conservative? I'm like, I will never label myself, because then what I'm going to have to say, I identify with these fat cats in Washington that could care less about me. They could care less about anybody else but themselves and how to get more power. So I find that we as humans tend to be more fluid, and we like to, I notice a lot of people like to get categorized, because there's like, oh, I'm special. This is my specialness. And look, all these boxes are checked. And same with like astrology. It's like, look, I'm Aquarius, Capricorn, I'm on the cusp, so that means I'm this. And I think we can be a little more impressionable, and so we kind of can start to slip into becoming that. Like you get diagnosed, and then all of a sudden you start to become that, which is actually, Gabe, what I wanted to talk to you about. Because since I was on your podcast, and this will be the little before the show bonus that people get if you listen to the whole podcast, and then at the end we'll have this little before the show bonus. But I have been thinking often about what you had said about, you had 2 clients, husband and wife, and I believe they were tested for Lyme's disease. One manifested symptoms, the other did not. And my hypothesis has been, it's not the person, it's not Lyme's disease, but it's the test. And the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry, it didn't get corrupted by Rockefeller. it was born out of, corruption, pharmakia and spellcasting and alchemist and dark magic. And so we have all these tests that people love to go in and give their blood. I mean, that's kind of a satanic ritual also. I'm going to consent for you to cast spells on me because I've donated some bodily fluid. And witchcraft definitely.
Some part of me, right?
Some part of me has, and it's completely consented. You even have to sign. So we look at prostate specific antigen test, hoax. We look at the PCR test, look how much we've put into that. I actually had a box of 50 PCR tests and, took one after another, all 25, thinking I was going to get like 60, 40, but it's in the actual PCR test that I believe, because it has a control that you put to get a positive result. So whatever that control is would already be impregnated in the PCR test, amongst other things, so they could get their numbers that they want. And then we look at any of it. It's these tests, I believe, are designed to cast the spells. Here, look at I've been diagnosed with Lyme's disease. Here's the symptoms. Oh my gosh, I have every single one of them. And so does everybody else, if you really think about it, in this modern world, right? Oh, I'm fatigued. And well, I did have a bullet rash. And I mean, I've been bitten by, since I moved to California, probably 6 ticks. They don't bite me anymore because I stopped using soap. I wash with baking soda just in the bathing suit area, and then I leave my skin intact. They don't bite me anymore. They don't bite my dog since I stopped taking her to the bath and washing her with soap. But
interesting. I didn't know that, and that might be something I have to ask you about, because where I live at, my house is in the Ozarks, and it's surrounded by wilderness. And I plan on getting some guinea birds out here because the ticks are ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you're like, since I've lived in California, I've gotten bit by 6 ticks, and I'm like, 6? I might have 6 on me at once just from going outside.
Yeah. Oh, I had 20 different ticks on my pants just from crossing through 20 feet of grass. Got them all off, and then we're like stuck. Do we go back and get another 20, or we go forward? So we went forward. There's another 20 on me, 30 on my dog. Got them all off, but they don't bite us anymore. And to the point where they stay on me. I found them hanging out in my ear, just sitting there, or, in my hair. They'll just be sitting there waiting for what maybe a better victim. But yeah, they used to bite me. So my point with that is, well, we'll do 2 points now because of your question, but the point is, well, then every single wild animal that has ticks would have Lyme's disease. And they say, they have a different system. I think baloney. And then the second thing is, if you are in your homeostasis, you're in harmony, your body is not interfered with. You're not washing off the sebum layer of your skin, your protective, I call it a one-way valve. Things can exit, but bad things can't enter. Then we're protected, but I think a tick bite is a tick bite is a tick bite. There's not asymptomatic carriers of diseases, but it sure is a good story to explain why we're all getting sick. Because if you're healthy, like, you and your wife, you're probably really healthy. You don't get sick. And if you do, you can always trace it back to that thing that you were doing. Like, we were flying and, we ate at one of the airport kiosks. If you're always healthy, you would start to think, maybe it's the vitamins and supplements I'm taking. Maybe it's the IV infusions of vitamin C I'm getting because I keep getting sick after that. Like, you'd start to put 2 and 2 together, except instead of the narrative then would be, I have Lyme's disease, that's why I'm sick, and the vitamin C infusion's helping, but I still have symptoms.
Right. So I think I tell you what, my opinions on things change almost monthly.
Me too.
and that's a good sign. I just had a meeting with a client I haven't seen in 2 months, and she was asking about she's doing okay, and then things kind of went south for her over the last few weeks. And I was sharing with her that new information that I had not shared with her before as a previous client. And I think a lot of it has to do with how our brain is. I always talk about the subconscious mind, and that being set for self-mutilation and whatnot. And I still agree with that theory, but I think it's not really understood by a lot of people. Like, if I say that, some of the crowd may get it, most of the crowd probably won't.
Right.
So I've been kind of changing my lingo, and to change my lingo, I have to change some understandings of things. And what I'm really learning is I've been really diving into neuroplasticity really, really deep lately. And that's just our brain's ability to make new connections and weaken other connections, because it's constantly learning, even remolding within an hour.
Right.
They did experiments with the 2-point discrimination test and blindfolded subjects, and they would blindfold them, take the 2-point discriminations where they're using 2 different probes and kind of poking their back, their glutes, their thighs, and determining how much space before you can only feel it like 1 point, because your sensory system is different on those areas. Then they retested them in 1 hour, kept them blindfolded for 1 hour, and the accuracy just went through the roof after 1 hour. This just shows us a glimpse that, and I'm sure you've seen the test where they put the fake arm on the guy and they brush his real arm and the fake arm with a feather, and then they hit it with a hammer and he kind of jumps. All of those things just show us how quickly our brain can remold and relearn.
Right.
And when we're talking about this person with Lyme disease, and it wasn't just a lab work, it was also muscle testing and other, we'll call them subjective. Okay.
Yeah.
Useful clinical tools, depending on the person, because my whole thing on muscle testing is it can be a useful tool, but it's often relied on. And I will say this may ruffle feathers, but that's okay. If a person is only taught to muscle test for 3 points, let's say I'm going to muscle test you, Robin, and I've only been trained on 3 points, and one of them has to do with yeast, parasites, or viruses. Let's just say, just arbitrarily, yeast, parasites, viruses, and you're having a bacterial problem. One of those others is going to ring up, and therefore my testing is going to be inaccurate. So it's subjective. But in the case of this man and woman that were spouse, and there was multiple cases, not just them, multiple examples of these where one of them would have this positive microbe, the other one would have positive microbe, one of them has symptoms. My understanding is it's not just the personalities that create that, but it's also how in threat response their brain was. Because our brain is literally learning all the time. And anyone that has chronic pain, chronic symptoms, digestive upsets, insomnia, depression, what's unique about these is we'll look at them and we'll look at blood work and we'll look at these other things and think, well, they're depressed because of this and that. But what actually is starting to come out in the literature is all of these don't have to do, for example, chronic pain doesn't have to do with the pain receptors going on in the brain. It actually has to do with the learned and memory responses in the brain going active. So they learned how to maintain that state of illness.
And the perception of what pain is. So remember, in medical school, nursing school, you're taught the pain scale.
Right.
I mean, hardcore. Nurses are taught, you need to ask that patient what their pain level is, 0 to 10. If it's 8 out of 10 or worse, you have to treat them with opioids, or you're going to take that acute pain and it's going to turn chronic, which is a lie. And that is from the pharmaceutical industry. And people that say it's 8 out of 10 pain when it's 8 out of 10 pain, you can't discuss and say, oh, it's 8 out of 10. I think I need, narcotic pain medications. Like it's extremely painful. You're not able to conduct a logical conversation. So that's just a way to sell opioid pain
certainly
medications, right? And then we're so involved in this idea of pain. So, if we get back to the subconscious, there's people that, and I don't care if it's that little, old woman or the people that are on my hospice caseload. Like, some people really like heroin, aka opioid pain pills, and some people could care less. But the ones that do now are in the subconscious. Are they really at an 8 out of 10, or they really just want another hit? Do they really just want to check out for a minute? And that's what I've seen in my 36 years direct patient care as a nurse and working hospice. So it gets really tricky, and then it gets really tricky with muscle testing. I see, and again, this will ruffle feathers, but I don't believe in muscle testing anymore. Unless there could be some really good practitioners that their ego and what they believe they should be seeing is taken out. But, even in experiments with, quantum physics, just your idea of what you expect to see, it starts to show up in your reality.
Right.
So it's very convoluted when we get into that subjective matter. So my philosophy has just been address the root causes, toxins and the poisons, let the body heal itself. If it's not, then we've got some emotional roots going on as well.
And chances are you're always going to have emotional roots. It's just to what degree. The people that you were describing who want the opioids, want the narcotics, there's a good chance that they're emotionally wrecked too. And they take those and they suddenly feel relief, and they're not even sure why.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good chance, and it may be physical pain, it may not be physical pain, but they're wanting that because it does, kind of like you said, give them a chance to check out.
It's a numbing. Right. So it's like let's just talk about the rat park experiment. That's a perfect one. They give these rats a choice between cocaine water, heroin water, and just regular water when they're just in a cage. And all of the rats chose the cocaine water or heroin water 100% of the time. They put them in rat park, which just has everything a rat could like, friends, games,
ways to occupy themselves, yeah.
Ways to, and not just occupy themselves, but enjoy their life.
Mm-hmm.
None of them chose the cocaine water. None of them chose the heroin water. So when you're after that chemical dopamine hit, it's not easy to take a chemical dopamine hit. Like, that stuff constipates you. It makes you itchy. The come down is horrible. So they are surpassing all of that so they can numb themselves from something that seems easier at the time than actually, going on a hike, chopping wood, reading a book in the sun, those kinds of things. So agree. Yeah. I think healthy rats aren't going to get addicted to cocaine. Healthy humans aren't going to get addicted to oxycodone.
Right. And here's the thing. When we say healthy, what's that mean exactly too? Because when you said you and your wife are healthy, probably healthy, yeah. and let's say if you hardly get sick, which we don't, okay. If we do, it's a mild head cold, and it's usually because we're just kind of pushing. We're on a project and we're just pushing and pushing and pushing, and our body's saying, "Hey, slow down a bit." But for example, I can hop on a flight and go eat somewhere that's completely out of the norm and have no symptoms. If I go somewhere, which it happens, I went to San Diego a while back. I went to a conference for a few days. The biggest thing that I'm going to notice, and it's like I'm not aware of how to correct it yet, it's just my sleep disturbances. If I go into a hotel, I could have the lights off. I crank where it's cold in there. I do everything I need to, but I'm not going to sleep the best. I'll still function fine, and I'll still wake up in the morning and not be late, but having difficulty getting to sleep or even staying asleep through the night, I notice those kind of things when I travel somewhere else, but I can eat something completely out of the norm. I could eat something for all practical purposes if I'm on the go and I've not eaten and I'm like, okay, I can either fast even more or I can
Hmm.
choose this less than healthy option at an airport. I might grab that and eat and be completely fine. So those kind of things, and I think that's where you're healthy. That's where you can take some outside stresses and not be sidelined.
Hmm.
I think if you travel and you eat somewhere and then suddenly you're sick, there's a good chance there's a good chance that you were not maybe not having symptoms, but you were kind of outside of a balance somewhere, and this was just enough to kind of tip you.
Well,
So
let me add one more thing to that, because I getting rid of my toxic load in these past 2 years, like everything, dishwasher soap, no longer using soap, no longer washing my hair. I feel that I'm in my homeostasis. I'm not eating too much. I'm not, everything is, my thirst is on cue. But if I do eat out of something out of alignment, I know instantly. So either I will become nauseous or have a flushing, diarrhea, gets rid of it. I feel like that's in a homeostasis rather than someone with a higher toxic load. Like your body can no longer respond to these 911 calls you've been exhibiting 3 or 4 times a day, like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and drinks at night and coffee in the morning. You don't even notice it anymore. Like, so I think it's an interesting play of, what is healthy, what is homeostasis, what does that actually look like? Because wild animals, same thing. They won't eat our food. I have a friend, I don't know why he keeps doing that. I think if I put my thumb up,
or if you say something that's agreeable,
yeah, maybe if I do a heart, no.
there you go.
I got to turn that off. Um, if the wild animals won't eat the food because they can smell the chemicals that are in the food and they know it's not
Oh,
anything
for
to
certain.
eat. They put HEK 293 cell line, fetal cell line in our food products because it shunts the blood from the olfactory and the taste buds, so you're not tasting. You can't smell the chemical, so then you can eat food that's actually not food. So it's definitely complicated. When we're talking about all of this, like you said, like you change your opinion every month. So do I, because it's so complicated and they spend trillions of dollars tricking us into poisoning ourselves in a myriad of different ways. So trying to figure it out is very nuanced and ever changing, ever evolving.
Right. Um, I think one of the biggest aspects of it, because here's the thing, I said it recharges my battery to go out in the sun and chop firewood. Recharges my battery, makes me feel alive. But I can tell you this through my own journey of being through lots of trauma, being a combat veteran, being a drug addict, totally hooked on meth to the point when I was 18, I was breaking in people's houses. That's the
Um,
kind of crowd I ran around with. So when I talk about trauma and things like that, it's because I've lived it, and I've
right.
had PTSD very severe. One of those things that my palms would just go flush. I could just go from hot to chilly to shivering to suddenly sweating. Just my nervous system would just flicker like a switch.
Yeah.
And when I first started dating my wife, when we first started dating, we're sitting down watching a movie together, watching some crap on TV, and she was like, "My God, your nervous system's like a light switch," and it really was. I'm sitting here watching TV, but my nervous system would do that, and I was literally smoking cannabis at night to even be able to calm down because uh, I think what happened was I had a conditioned aversion to nighttime being dangerous.
Mm,
Working in the Marines, things like that. I just, when it would start to get, during the day, I could be okay. During the night, and even during the day, my nervous system flickered, but during the night, it was way more prominent. Like I was way
Mm.
more on alert. And so I would do that. And I can tell you, chopping firewood, being in the sun, eating grass-fed meat, eating organic food, which we have in our house, lots of organic food,
Yeah.
and not taking all these supplements. I mean, I do like fish oil. I take a handful of good fish oil because I can just tell it makes my brain just a little sharper, you know. Um, but I don't take a briefcase of supplements. I don't. I don't
Yeah.
see the necessity to. But all of that stuff did not make me feel healthier. It recharges my battery. What makes me really feel healthier is ensuring that I'm completely in harmony with every emotion. That means no matter what happens, I've trained my brain to where I can feel every emotion. And
Right.
that's difficult to do if a person's not done it. I know of people right now that have trauma courses that have they say they help people with cancer. And I'm also trained extensively in being able to look at people's face and diagnose things, not with mineral salts or this and that, from Ayurvedic and traditional Chinese principles of 5,000 years. I can look at somebody and see what emotions you're harboring. I can see what
Right.
trauma show up on your body by looking at your face. And it's not because it's some party trick or something like that. This is stuff that's highly accurate that when I work with clients, I just had a live event a few weeks ago and I showed people, I said, so this is what you look at. This is every time the person has made a certain expression or they try to repress an emotion and it sneaks out. They do this 1,000 times through, many years of lifetime, and it shows up on their face, and you can see if the person has been traumatized, if they're harboring anger, if
Mm.
they feel lack, if they feel like no matter what, there's just something always missing. You can see those, and I showed these to the audience, and then I showed pictures of celebrities. I showed a picture of Dr. Wolfson, the paleocardiologist, and I had the audience pick out, oh my gosh, he's got a lot of unprocessed grief, you know, and it's first off, knowing this stuff is a real privilege. So I cue the audience that, hey, we're going to go to places where hardly anyone goes. You're going to be able to see people for who they really are. It's a privilege. We suspend all judgment, and we love our clients. That means we only see the best in them. We're not here egotistically. We're here to understand, to see things about them so we can further assist them, so we can help
Hmm.
them, so we can help them beyond the lab work, beyond the hair
Right.
test, beyond all that other stuff. Um, but I do see a lot of people in the coaching world, in the world of and functional medicine, and in the worlds of doctors and things, they have a tremendous amount of repressed emotions, repressed traumas that are showing up on their face, and yet they're like, look at me, I've got my organic, I got my chickens, and I've got this, and I've got
Yeah,
that.
I know.
And I agree, all that's healthy, but one of the biggest things we have to do is we have to look at ourselves and say, are there, if I say the word all emotions are precious, all emotions are precious, does it give you a ping? Does it make you feel kind of uncomfortable in a way, and maybe say, well, there's some that I don't think they're precious. Those are things that need to be explored, because there's a good chance that your brain has, throughout your life somewhere, learned to label certain emotions as forbidden, certain emotions that are not allowed to be expressed. And one of the things that happens to us when we're children is, especially in the Western world, I don't care where you grew up in if you were in a civilized world somewhere, whether it was Netherlands, whether it was Tasmania, whether it was Moscow or Russia, I know because I've worked with all these people along the line somewhere, as they're growing up, there's certain emotions that their parents forbid them from having, in the way of, good girls don't cry, stop your damn crying, or I'll give you something to cry about, something like that. And our brain, through what's called conditioned aversion, learns that these emotions are dangerous. So what happens years later, we become adults, and our brain, to keep us from going into that world that's so-called, quote, dangerous,
Hmm.
it'll create a symptom to avert us, to divert us, and to distract us from allowing that emotion to be even acknowledged. And so it's not just the physical things of being healthy and being toxic free, and I don't want to say toxin free, but minimizing as much as you can, because I mean, let's be honest, the way that they're doing things to us, there's
Right.
just no avoiding it. There's just no avoiding it. Every one of us have had genetically modified foods. I don't care who you are, you've eaten it, right?
And they lie to you though about the genetically modified foods. Just
For
so that
sure.
you're like, in California, we have labels on pretty much everything that you buy, including food. This product is known in the state of California to cause cancer. So you're seeing it, it's visually written on the food, it's an energetic, you're consenting to eat the food to give yourself cancer. Like that's these mind tricks they play on you. And I just want to touch on one thing in the middle of this, and that is, again, when I'm talking about homeostasis, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I'm talking about, you have, yes, dealt with your trauma, meaning you've acknowledged the traumatic events in your life and where you've showed up poorly because of those events. Like, you've done your shadow work. You've said, okay, I was showing up in ways that definitely not my potential, definitely was a choice, but now I want to do better. Like when 2020 hit, some of us were all about and
Right.
like the virus, and then when we learn more, and it's like, oh, okay. So I'm not going to judge people back there. I'm not going to judge myself back when I didn't have that information. So it's like, it's incorporating all of it. But when we are in that homeostasis, when we don't take soap and put it in our mouth and erode the biofilm, or alcohol or glycerin, a petroleum-based product, that biofilm is there. The mucous membranes are there. Parasites in the body are beneficial 100% of the time. If they're not, then you have cancerous tumors that they're cleaning up. If I kill my parasites, I shoot the garbage man. And then I wonder why I got garbage piling up around my house. Like,
And you wonder why they come back like
and
clockwork.
yeah, it was like, we're trying to help you. Why do you keep killing us? It's an insecticide. It's not just heat-seeking missiles killing the parasites and now you're cleaned out. That's the idea. So they keep tricking us over and over and over into poisoning ourselves. When you are in homeostasis, though, you don't get tricked. You see the playbook for what it is. So they spray some chemicals in the sky. I don't see it killing mosquitoes and butterflies and bees. I have beehives. It's like, so it's not that bad. If I'm protected, I've got my little bubble. My hair has the sebum. My skin has the sebum. My nose has the mucous membranes. I'm not eroding anything or entering into a state of fear, meaning I interfere with the miraculous capacity of my human body to stay in harmony.
I think you just really hit the big one, is the fear. The fear is, and that's what I would say was the difference between the clients we were talking about earlier. One is completely succumbing to the microbes, and one of them's not. I don't even think it was the microbes. I think
Yeah.
it was the fear. And
Yes.
the fear, one of the things that I've learned in the last probably 8 months is that putting together a big database of what's going on with my clients overall, looking at them, how things have improved, looking at my blind spots too.
Right.
One of the things that's become obvious to me over the last 8 months, and it's even more obvious, is the fact of nocebos. Nocebos that have been told to them by professionals, but also coaches and also people that, because our brain is learning so fast, it's always building and making new networks. The minute that a person has, and this is the path that every person with chronic pain or chronic illness goes down. And I recite this to them, and they always respond like, "Oh my gosh, you've read my mail. How do you know this?
Yeah.
And how do you know this about me?" And I say, "Well, it's not about you. It's about every person." They start with a simple symptom. They start with a symptom or a pain, and what's the first thing any person does when they have a pain? And that sticks around longer than it should. So after 12 weeks, whatever was there should have healed. If it's a wound, if it's an injury, if it's a sprained ankle, if it's a cut, if it's a digestive upset, after 12 weeks, the body only knows how to heal. Can we agree the body only knows how to heal?
Only.
Body, right?
Only.
Fully.
Army.
It only knows how to heal. So what happens when a person has chronic illness and things have only gotten worse and worse and worse, and chronic pain? I mean, the chronic pain epidemic is it costs more, and it's more of a problem than all the cancer, all the heart disease, and all the diabetes put together. The people that have chronic pain is way more of a problem than we thought. And so what happens to every one of these cases is they start with a small pain. And what's the first thing that they do, Robin, when they have a pain?
The first thing they should do is ask why, but they don't.
Right. And they may say, okay, why, what's happening? This pain's sticking around. What's going on? And usually most cases they'll try to fix it on their own. They'll try a simple remedy. Maybe they go for the Advil. Some people may go for a homeopathic. Some people may, change their pillows, change their shoes, do whatever they need to do to try to alleviate that pain. And what happens is that pain is like a tiny little pebble, and they do something to resolve it. And after 12 weeks, after a couple of months, it doesn't quite get resolved. And now they start to kind of worry. And so they'll go see a professional. They'll go see a chiropractor or a physical therapist or an acupuncturist or an allopathic doctor, whichever one. I'm going to throw them all in the same category because I am a chiropractor and I wasn't trained in a lick of this. And on a regular basis, my clients are chiropractors. Mm-hmm. So obviously something in the training was deficient, right?
Right.
So they go see a professional. The professional will always look at them as a physical body. I don't care if it's a muscle testing, functional medicine. They'll look at them as a physical body and say, okay, here, let's do blood work. That's looking at you physically. Okay. A chiropractor will do x-ray or imaging. An orthopedic will do, physical tests, imaging, and they'll offer a treatment. Treatments will always be offered. Wherever it goes, treatments will always be offered. So the person does the treatment and they have a little bit of relief and they feel better. And then after a few weeks, what happens? That pain returns. Now the tiny little rock of worry has gotten bigger. They went and seen a professional. The pain kind of still there. Then they'll try to solve it on their own. They'll start Googling. They'll start looking at images. They'll start joining toxic Facebook groups where people talk about mold symptoms, whatever else, and their worry just grows and grows. They go see a professional again, get more things done, and now the professional's telling them something like, this is something along the lines of, this is a little more serious than we thought because it's not gone away yet. Well, what's that do to their ever-growing neuroplastic brain? The worry just grows. More treatments are offered. Symptoms are kind of looked at. There's a little bit of relief. And next thing you know, what started out as a small pain has now grown quite a bit. Because it's not because the problem in their body has gotten worse. It's because their brain has become more and more and more worried, more fearful, more threat in response, everything else. And they continue to go this way. And before you know it, they're seeing a group of doctors. Treatments are being offered. Treatments are not really handling the problem. More fear, frustration, because how much have they spent? And frustration, fear of my body's stuck like this. Fear that I'll have this forever. Worry that I'll have this forever. And now what started out as a simple pain has turned into a full-blown, multiple symptom brain and threat response. And the brain creates our reality. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I've recognized that happens in virtually everyone that has chronic pain, especially, but chronic illness is not so much the microbes and all this other stuff. It's that the nocebos and all the things they've read about, and the fear and the frustration has just proliferated them to where they get at the final blow is they feel so broken that their body is not going to heal.
Right.
And that's kind of the end of the road.
And that is why when I look at the organization of the medical system, and again, functional medicine was also created by Rockefeller. Functional medicine, allopathic medicine, in my mind, they're the same thing, because you take now that little, let's say it's mid-back pain or nerve pain shooting down your leg, right? And it's chronic. Well, now you have gone into the spellcasting system and consented for you to now cast more spells on me. So the nocebo, it's a perfect way of just saying spellcasting.
Right.
So there is something wrong. I've got the white coat, and I wear a white coat now because my patients listen to me simply because I have a white pharmaceutical coat on. But I'm talking about, eating healthier and getting rid of different medications. But
if I could interrupt you for a moment, that white coat, their deepest, most primitive part of them is synthesized to comply with authority.
That's it. And so you have taken this pain, and you have subjected all of your intuition, all of your divine wisdom into a translator. So they have to have a translator from the time we're babies. We are stupid. We don't know anything. Everything that you came in knowing is wrong. And you're going to have to rely on the translator. So it's either your parents, your teachers, they're all indoctrinated, so they don't care that they're teaching you, or the doctor. Boy, those doctors, so their stethoscope, that's, second to God.
Mm-hmm.
And
I was going to say God themselves. Right?
God themselves. And that's how my patients see the doctors. What they say goes. And even though they know better, they can't stop it. They'll still get the cholesterol drugs and just let them pile up in the closet because they can't say no to God. But so now we're into the nocebo. Then now you've become the chronic pain person. You've become it, because all we're doing is we're dumping pills and potions and treatments on a message. It's like, shut up, shut up, shut up. You're just telling it to shut up, trying to push it down. It's getting louder because you're not listening. Something's wrong. That's why you're in pain. The body is expressing to you something is out of alignment, or some things. Are you taking vitamin D3 and it's demineralizing your bone? Are you drinking too much water? Are you drinking water out of a Berkey filter and it's actually just tap water? Those kind of things will then play into, now all I'm doing is focusing on that pain. Whatever I focus on gets bigger. So I've just complicated this problem so that now I'm a cradle to grave consumer for the medical industrial complex.
Right. That's it. And one of the things that is very important is to point that out for people is the body only knows how to heal. And if I ask an audience that have you ever asked somebody, does the body only know how to heal? And they kind of look at you like confused.
Yeah. Well, they'll kind of look around like, well, but how do you know what's wrong with the body unless you go get tested? That's the number one thing people push up against me. How do you know unless you're getting regular lab draws and having them tell you if your body's in health? And I'm like, your body will tell you. You'll have heart arrhythmias. You will have bad breath. You can't see. Your hair will be falling out. Something will happen. Your skin will have rashes. You won't be walking along perfectly healthy, feeling good, feeling harmonious, having all of your emotions in check, and then all of a sudden have, like a tumor the size of a grapefruit. It doesn't happen.
No, it's had warning lights all along.
We've had warning lights. So The medical industrial complex takes the duct tape and puts it over the warning light. And then if that starts to burn through the duct tape, you just put some more over and some more, and then pop up. It's like you're sticking your hands and fingers through all these little dam holes. Eventually it's going to burst because your body is like, okay, you wouldn't listen 12 years ago, and now here we are addicted to painkillers and going to pain clinics and have an implanted pain pump. Like, this is the patients that I see on a daily basis, and my heart goes out to them because they believe in God, aka their doctor.
Right.
And they put him in that translator position. So it's like getting back into that role of put your hand over your heart, ask your body, what is the message? I'm so sorry I haven't listened to you in the past. Let's get back together again. Let's join up and let's start to unravel where this comes from. Like, we're all traumatized. We all have emotional baggage and damage. And so it's only when it starts to puppet our behaviors in the here and now that clearly something still hasn't been addressed. Like, I'm still working through lots of my childhood trauma. I keep thinking, man, okay, now I've got on top of it. I'm 56. I can just relax a little. And it's like, nope. Still, you got to keep going. You got to keep going until, like you said, like you believe you are in control of all your emotions, or you've made peace and harmony with all those emotions.
Here's what I would say is I've trained my brain to that all emotions are precious, and what that means is whenever a certain emotion comes up, I allow myself to feel it. And
I'm going to highlight that. That's probably going to be the title of our podcast too, because that's exactly what you were talking about in the whole pain example. All emotions are precious, including the emotion of the pain. So if you ignore it or like go away,
right,
what's going to happen? It's going to get louder. It's going to get bigger.
It's going to be repressed. And the example I gave in the live event, the example I often use is it doesn't need much for it to start causing a symptom. Okay. And I get the whole California thing because I'm a firearm enthusiast. I have my own rifle range, and being a Marine, and every time I buy ammo, I see it on there. This product is known to cause cancer. And, so I'm like, well, damn, do I just ignore it, or do I just trust my body to take care of everything?
Or cross it out and put another label over it, or tear that label off. Cause that's what I do now. I will not.
And here's the thing. This is the power we do have. This is the power we do have, and the power that needs to be brought to people is you have a choice in how you respond to anything. Any information you and I are talking about right now, that any listener might have, they have a choice. They can accept it or they can reject it, and that's their choice. One of the first things that whenever a person comes to me and they have done everything,
right,
is the first thing I do is give them back their autonomy. I say this: I want to tell you that you don't have to change anything at all. That's the first thing I'm going to tell you, is you absolutely don't have to change anything at all. And they are always a little startled by that, because for years now they've been told, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this, you have to do that. And the only reason a person's going to change is going to have to be for their reasons. And so giving them back their own choice always kind of lets them go, okay, so I do have a choice. And you might even notice if I said, you don't, like, you have a drink there, right? In a cup in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want you to just
tea
just
and my water.
Just pay attention to how this makes you feel, Robin. If I said, take a drink of that water. Now, just pay attention to how it feels. You see how you kind of go, I don't want to. Yeah, right?
Don't tell me what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, and now I was thirsty, but now I'm not going to drink it because you told me to. Or if I'm, more in line with wanting a translator, then it's like, oh, okay, I'll drink it.
Exactly right. So, but what's happened in that is this happens to all of us too. Somebody gave you great advice, you knew it was helpful, and you knew it could change some part of your life, but because they gave it to you, you're like, nah, I'm not going to do it. Even if you were thirsty, you'd not want to. So I think the first thing is giving them back their choice and saying, hey, you don't have to change anything you don't want.
Yeah.
You don't have to change anything, because what that does is it automatically makes them now pay attention how you feel. If I were to say, Robin, you don't have to take a drink of that water if you don't want to. It's your choice. You see how now you're like, oh, I kind of want to. Same thing with
That
people.
like I have to interrupt because this was like a just epiphany that I had not too long ago, and it's like when I injured my knee to the point I couldn't walk. It was on a one-wheel skateboard, and then I hiked up this hill, and it locked up, and I had to crawl down.
Did we talk about that before? Yeah, okay. We did, right.
Yeah, and so I mean, had a helicopter rescue, the whole thing. But I was kicked out of a chiropractor's office because I wouldn't acknowledge that I was in pain. She wanted me to acknowledge I was in pain. I'm like, oh, this is a sales tactic. You're wanting me to get in and do like 20 sessions, and I just want you to look at my knee and see if you can adjust it. And she's like, you need to get out of here. Here's some referrals, but you know, this is not the office for you. Because she was manipulating it, you know, and it was like, she just wanted me to say, oh, this is hers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I left. The other doctor that I went to refused to not do an x-ray because I said I will not x-ray and radiate a fresh wound. So I had nothing. But what did it do? I'm responsible for my healing. I need to quit coffee today. Like, coffee is a inhibitor of fibrin, elastin, and collagen production. I need to make sure I'm doing every single thing to heal my knee. So now the responsibility is on me. Like, I'm not relying on a translator. I'm listening to myself. I'm listening to my body like 100%. Like, I'm almost on a deserted island and it's only me and the natural world. And what did it do? Like, I changed because it was on me. Like, I'm in control. No one's telling me what to do. No one's giving me a protocol, and here's your physical therapy, and here's your pain medication regime, or here's your supplements, or here are your homeopathic pills. It's you. Like you said, like, you're giving your clients that autonomy. Sorry to interrupt that, but I had to get that out because I knew it was gonna go into the ethers.
No, that's good. Giving back their autonomy, it allows them to make a choice for their reasons, right? And how we got there was the ammo. When I see, oh, this product causes, I just immediately like reject it. Just like if anyone gave you a suggestion other than you want to hear, like, you know, for you to survive this epidemic, you got to have this injection, right? You can reject any information you want. And that's the power we do have. When it comes to somebody that works with me, one of the things I tell them is I give them a good questionnaire. I give them some evaluation stuff. I work through Zoom, but I start to show them, and this is something else that I've learned, is by the time the person gets to me, they're theoried out. So I always say this: we're not working on theories here. Mm-hmm. We're not working on this theory or that theory. And look how many different theories there are today, Robin, even amongst doctors. Methylene blue, good. Methylene blue, bad. Vegetables, good. Vegetables, bad. All meat, good. All meat, bad. It's like there's so much confusion out there, even amongst doctors. There always has been. And maybe it's more proliferated now, but there's just so much confusion out there that people don't even know what to do. And so when I start working with them, I'm like, look, we're not going to do theories. We're not going to work on any theories at all. You need to become your best detective. You need to start collecting evidence on what's happening and what's not happening. And so I share with them, okay, that what's going on with their physical body is not their body, because the body only knows how to heal. Yes or no? The body only knows how to heal. Well, why the physical symptoms? Because your brain is in threat response, and your brain produces everything. Your brain controls every molecule in your body. Every single molecule is influenced by the brain. And if your brain is in threat response because you've believed the wrong things, and you've worried, you've had frustration, you've had fear, you've had past traumas, you've had emotional repression, you know, and even a topic like this, because I've done this in multiple groups. I did it in my live event. I did it in a break and free group. I did it with a other group of people. I asked them this. I said, just tell me flat out. I just want to hear your response. I'm not going to say anything. I just want to hear your feedback on this. When I say the word nutrition, just nutrition, how do you all feel about that word? How do you feel about it? And they all go like this. Oh, they all just kind of, and I'm like, see, you're all giving me a blueprint right now of how your brain even feels about nutrition. And you know why that is? Because you're all scared to death of everything. You're scared to death about eating the wrong thing. You're scared to death about this. You're scared to death about that. Pesticides, herbicides, chemicals, glyphosate, everything. And I get that. I don't want to say be naive about it at all. But you're scared to death even about the word nutrition. Something that's supposed to be good
Right.
elicits fear in at least the 3 separate crowds that I've asked at in the last 6 weeks. The crowd that I had that came from everywhere from Alaska, all different parts of North America in this live event I had a few weeks ago, I said, when you guys hear the word nutrition, what do you think?
Right.
Ugh.
Because that's how they get us from zero until, well, now probably high school, college, is they condition you to not trust your body on how to fill your own body, how to deal with your own thirst. You have to, and everyone even leads with it. I'm paleo, I'm doing keto, I'm on elk meat, and it's like you're taking what somebody else said and ignoring. So that's a huge red flag right there. You're not listening to your own body's cues on how to even eat or how to drink. And that's, when I do a 30-day cleanse, they're so popular, and everyone that does my cleanses does the next one and the next one and the next one, because it's like they keep going back to themselves. That's what it's all about. Listening to your hunger cues, listening to what your body wants to fuel to do what? Stay in harmony. That's all your body knows to do. So it's going to fuel you in states of harmony. If you need something healed, it's going to say, okay, lemons are irresistible to you right now, or radishes are irresistible. That's what you need to get back into that homeostasis. But when we're cut off from source of, listening to that, then it's like, well, what's Joe Rogan eating? Or what are these influencers on TV? They're influencing you to be inside the medical industrial complex. But this has been the fastest hour that I've ever had. So I have to go. But we're going to have to do a part 2 on this, because I was just wanting to talk about the test and really get into that. But there's so many different threads and avenues on this. So where can people find you, and how can they work with you if they want to work with you?
Okay. The subconsciouthealer.com is my website. And that's probably the fastest way. I've got a couple of free educational videos. There's a breaking-free.com. So breaking-free.com is a free course that I have that people can kind of dive into getting harmony with their emotions if they're not. It can start helping them pick away if traumas, if there's something that's lingering that shouldn't be. The best way to get a hold of me though is the subconsciouthealer.com.
Okay. Links are right there.
Okay. Excellent. And yeah, I agree. This has been a very fast hour, and I want to dive into this more. The topic is so fascinating, and we need to. People are so confused out there,
Yeah.
and they're so cut off from trusting themselves, and they're so compelled to follow authority. This is how compelled they are to follow authority, Robin. And I know you get this completely. It's not even controversial. Absolutely 100% fact. The medical system is the 3rd leading cause of death.
Right.
Right? But
I would say it's the first leading cause as an RN in the field. What I have witnessed personally that never gets recorded.
Right. And I would say that is probably, not to interrupt you, but I talk about this thing too. The mixing of medications is one that never gets reported. That is probably number 1.
Yeah.
The
And you're following the prescribed treatment. They're saying the third leading cause of death is medical error. So what I'm saying is the first leading cause of death is following your prescribed protocols.
right, and all the mixing, just the mixing of medications is probably a leading number one that doesn't get studied, that doesn't get reported, and it is that's probably a leading cause. But here's the point: we can talk about that. We can also talk about the number three, medical errors, but yet people will still follow the white coats because their paleocortex, it's called the reptile brain,
Yeah.
the most powerful driver of us, that is literally in control of everything, that a number of three-digit agencies spend trillions of dollars to control and manipulate that reptile brain, is so sensitized to comply with authority. And it was confirmed in what are called Milgram studies, and then Darren Brown actually reproduced that by giving electrical shocks to a person who pretended to be strapped to a chair, and a subject who was getting evaluated was told by a person in a white coat and a clipboard to give him increasing doses of electrical shocks to lethal doses, where the man was screaming in the other room. He's an actor, but the man kept going higher and higher in doses because of that compliance with authority. And if people don't get that, if people don't understand that part of themselves, then they're going to continue to fall into this trap.
And the trap, meaning you get tricked into poisoning yourself. So they
Right.
didn't care if you didn't get this, just as long as you took the ivermectin or the hydroxychloroquine or the vitamin A and the vitamin C, the vitamin D, the zinc.
Stay on the
Doesn't matter.
statins. Stay on the statins. All of it.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just keep poisoning yourself, because we know cradle to grave what you're worth. Like the pill itself garners them a little bit of profit, but they make 10 to 100 times that based on the downstream effects of what you're taking in that pill. And like you said, the synergistic effects of the 30 different prescriptions you're taking, plus the vitamins and supplements, which are pharmaceuticals in disguise. They're made in the identical ways. And actually, there's certain pharmaceuticals that are actually healthier than vitamins and supplements because there are not as many chemicals in them. They're just like digoxin is made from foxglove plant, pure.
And here's the thing too, Robin, this is what I've noticed, because I've been up to my neck in functional medicine, and I've used what are called whole food supplements and things that are from farms, and there's some organizations out there that are giving parasite cleanses and recommending it. And here's the thing: the advice they're giving to people on trauma is absolutely terrible. And what they are recommending is you take high doses of this stuff all the time, especially over full moon. So even if it's not, let's just say this, even if the company is not related to pharmaceutical, okay, even if the supplements are not under the banner of pharmaceutical, the manner at which they're prescribed is. And that's what
that's what I mean. It's the same. It's the same protocol. It's the same net result. It's going to keep you coming back, because killing the garbage man is going to keep you coming back to your doctor to get more pills because you got more garbage. So let's kill more garbage men.
Right.
And it's like, it's still the same cycle. They still want you coming back. Like if I get you into a state of autonomy and listening to your body and in harmony, I'm obsolete. And that's what I want. That's my goal. That's why I'm here on this planet. Whether, I make money on it or not, which depending on the month.
Which I tell you what, you want to do, but what I've learned is this, because I'm the same way. And I wrote about this in my book. When I first started getting into functional medicine, muscle testing and doing lab work and working on, what are called stealth infections that the medical community misses. It's kind of luring, it's kind of, you get into that and you're like, oh, wow, cool. We're getting to the real root cause. You don't hear medical doctors talk about parasites. Some of them even deny it. But the functional medicine is all about heavy metals, toxins, parasites, right?
Yeast and molds.
Right, and molds, of course, and yeast, right?
Yeah.
So when I first started getting really heavy into that because I wanted results. I wanted results with people. Um, and what I found is nobody gets results like they do with their own mindset, their own reality, the way they change their beliefs about themselves. That's where the real result, that's where the real healing happens. Um, but when I had this legendary mentor, he was a legendary standard process practitioner that was known in all different states because of how well he could help people when nobody else did. And he became like a father figure to me. I was under his wing. I was at his practice all the time, going out to eat with him all the time. And I noticed I was following his model, and I noticed that people were coming in, they were bouncing back. What I found is there's literature out there actually that says functional medicine is really working on placebo effect. That's why they tend to get better with their taking their supplements. They do tend to get better when they start taking supplements, Robin. But get this, for a short burst.
You also release adrenaline and cortisol when you take a known toxin, so it's a boost of energy and you feel like boom, like drinking a cup of coffee or smoking some nicotine. It's that boost, but then you have every up, you got to have the equal down. That's the yin and the yang of the medicine. So that's what keeps you coming back. And that's what I went into homeopathy, which I get so much hate for that. Like, I think people would burn my house down if they knew where I lived, because it's like, well, why doesn't it work for 40% of the people? Why do placebos work on 60%? And what about the 40%? We're just going to ignore them. Like, sorry guys, sucks to be you. That's when it's like, that's the matrix. Do you want the red pill or the blue pill? You're still in the matrix no matter which one you choose. It's just a new level of their matrix for the people that are awakening. We don't need a pill. What if that was the case? You don't need any healing to fix that pain except for what you stop doing. And when you're in a healing trajectory, most of the time you've quit all of the garbage, and then you take that one little homeopathic remedy, but that's it. That's what healed you. Not the fact that you stopped poisoning your body. So I'm really sorry to cut this short, but I do have to...
No, that's okay, Robin. Reach out to me and we'll get part 2 scheduled.
Let's get part 2 scheduled, or maybe even part 3, because this is like, I'm really lit up after these conversations, because I like your perspective. It's slightly different than mine, and that's how I grow. Because it's like, well, where am I really on this? Challenge me a little bit. Let's see where we kind of land and where the dust settles.
Excellent. Robin, it's always a pleasure, and thanks for having me today.
Likewise, I appreciate you. And again, all the links to find Dr. Gabe Roberts are below, and look forward to part 2.
Excellent. Me as well.
Thank you for joining us for another incredible episode of the Medicine Girl podcast, where our mission is to ignite the power within so you can hear your divine wisdom and follow your soul's true north. Fear is loud. Peace is quiet. Listen to the softest voice. Remember, no one is above you. No one is below you. They are just beside you. We are all walking each other home.
Hey, Robin.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's your day?
Fantastic.
Really? Good.
Yep. How are you doing?
Good. I'm just, I'm trying to figure out how I can do everything that I'm trying to do and not lose my mind.
Trying to figure things out is it's a good way to lose your mind.
Yeah. I think I've lost my mind. And now I'm just kind of picking up the pieces. Yeah, I've been through it, and now it's like it's cleanup mode. After I quit drinking alcohol. And it was like a glass or 2 of red wine. But I had no problem until I tried to quit.
Well, a glass or 2 of red wine, like a day or every other day?
It had become first it was like on a Friday, maybe Saturday. Then it was starting midweek because, life is stressful. I've got a son, all the excuses I made up in my mind. And then I was like every day. It was usually like one glass of red wine on an empty stomach, maybe another half glass because I couldn't really finish it. But it was every day, had to have it. And just started noticing things, like I couldn't remember phone numbers. I always remember phone numbers and addresses. That was slipping and just wasn't present. So then in the morning, I'm kind of hungover. So I'm going to have my green juice and my coffee to mitigate the hangover. And then I've made it through the day, so I've earned it.
Sound like a real sabotaging cycle going on.
Yeah, it was a good one. And yeah, so that was, it'll be 2 years in July since I completely quit alcohol, caffeine. I was smoking cannabis every now and then to help me sleep because it was it all stemmed from the wine.
It's been 2 years since you've been off of wine. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So these last 2 years have been cleanup mode. Because I